welcome to another episode of VERITAS. My name is Jessica Lubianski, and today I am very honored and excited to be joined by Father John Mefrige. Father John is an Eastern Catholic priest serving at a mission parish actually located within our diocese, but not quite a part of our diocese. So why don't we start? I'm going to let Father John kind of tell us a little bit about him and his history before we break open our topic today.
Thank you, Jessica. Like you said, I'm an Eastern Catholic priest, meaning I am a priest of the Melkite Greek Catholic Church. We have a community here in San Antonio that, by the generosity of the Archdiocese, we have a church building that we are using, one of their closed churches, on South Zarzamora, Rainier Catholic Charities. And so we have a community that worships in an Eastern Catholic rite, and I'm their pastor. And some of the differences have to do with the way we worship on Sunday. And so our liturgy, which we don't call a Mass, our liturgy is the Byzantine liturgy of St. John Chrysostom. So it's somewhere from the Byzantine Empire in the 8th or 9th century. Definitely an Eastern liturgy. That's one of the main differences, although if you want to come and visit, it fulfills your Sunday obligation. But there are fundamental differences because we are the Church of the East. And if you remember, St. John Paul spoke about the two sides of the lung of the church, that the church really needs to breathe with both, and we're the Eastern side. But some of those fundamental differences have to do with the way we worship and some of our discipline. One of the issues that will impact our talk today has to do with the fact that I'm married with 4 children. I've been married almost 20 years, and so I have a unique perspective on children because I've had to understand and raise children in a way that I think gives me a little bit more empathy to people with loud children in church or people that come late to church, because God helped my wife getting them to church. It's hard, and so there's a certain level of empathy. But in addition to that, after seminary, I got extra studies as a marriage and family therapist, and so I've done a lot of work with families and marriages. So I think when it comes to hearing confessions, I'm very empathetic to sort of the challenges brought about by that vocation. So that's sort of a little bit of an introduction about me and about our rite. But I think today we want to talk about something else.
Yeah, so today we really wanted to break open this idea of stress and how, in a funny way, some of us have all reached our maximum bandwidth and capacity of stress. And I often think of stress like a bottle that, sometimes we put the stress into our heart and it's like a bottle and we stuff it and we stuff it and we stuff it. And at some point, it's just going to explode. We can only wrap our head around so much before we do not want to do anything else, where we can't go any longer. We start slowing down like our bandwidth does. We were kind of joking about bandwidth before this series started and before we started filming today. And so today we're going to break open this idea of how do we, process stress in a healthy way, because some stress is healthy and some of it can be detrimental to us. And so I'm looking forward to breaking open this topic today with Father John. And so what are some ways that you think in this pandemic, in our society that we're living in, how can we really better manage stress as a family unit, especially our young church?
This is a great and important topic because the pandemic has really stressed families, and generally the families on the lower socioeconomic level are the most vulnerable. And so there are resources out there, but we've got to give a sort of understanding on what are the ways and what are the stressors. All of a sudden we've been placed under lockdowns and restrictions and wearing of masks, and our regular routines have been completely upended. that in and of itself is a very serious stressor. Not to mention, if there happens to be a loss of income or a loss of a job, or God forbid, a sickness. And so there is a lot. We are in a time where it's a risky time because there's a lot of stress out there, and there's some things we do that can make our stress worse, and there's some things that we can do to make our stress more tolerable. So, dealing with lockdown, or for those of you that are in school, how do I get through school? How do I accomplish the tasks of learning through a computer screen? Not to mention bandwidth, which, by the way, I was saying, I've had to get my second degree in IT technology, trying to figure out how to get everybody's devices connected at a certain bandwidth to stream 4 children simultaneously in a home. That's a challenge. But fortunately, we had good bandwidth to start with. We just needed a better network. But those kinds of things, even that, some disenfranchised families are having trouble even just logging on. Forget about, and so the schools are providing technology, and some of the schools have placed Wi-Fi points in some of our poorer neighborhoods. And so everyone's sort of coming together to manage this time. I'll say just from our perspective, one of the things was space. Where are you going to do all this? Are we going to live stream 4 kids from the kitchen table? That was not going to work. So, we had to expand into another apartment and give each child sort of a school room where they could have some space. And so that's one of the first things I would say is as a way to deal with the stress, take space. Now, maybe you won't be able to get another apartment, but you can go for a walk. Thank God we live in South Texas, where today it's a beautiful, 70 degrees or 68 or something this morning, where we can go for a walk, go on a hiking trail. And so one of the first coping mechanisms for any sort of stress is to take a break. Take a break from your phone, take a break from your television, take a break from all of the things that sort of overly connect you. And so that's one of the things I would say about this time. Our phones and television. If you've started watching the news because of the coronavirus, the news has a tendency to show the more extreme examples of what's going on. So for example, and it tends to be bad news. So whether it's crime or violence or the coronavirus, the media has a tendency to show the more extreme examples. And if you're watching that every day, that is going to have an effect on you. So first thing, take a break from watching the news. Don't watch 3 or 4 or 5 news channels a day. Maybe watch one every other day. And so as a way to de-stress, your environment is very important. Now, next to the environment is exercise. In this time of stress, if we're locked in our house, I was thinking about my mom who lives in Canada, and what's it going to be like in the pandemic in Canada, where during the winter you really can't leave, you can't go on a walk. So getting exercise, whether it's in a home gym, whether it's on a treadmill, or whether it's just around the block, exercise will be very important as well to manage stress. And I think the 2 elements, in addition to stress, have to do with anxiety and depression. And so there's probably going to be a higher definitely a higher experience of anxiety in this time. And anxiety and depression really go together because they're both dealing with a certain type of neurotransmitter in the brain. And so managing our anxiety, I don't have to be on my phone 24 hours a day. Being able to put down your phone. Having time to exercise outside of that. I know for a fact my wife, if she doesn't get exercise, she gets what we call hangry. And so, it's very important to make sure you're developing healthy coping mechanisms. But, it's not all bad news.
Right.
There are great lessons that we are learning in the midst of our lockdown and our pandemic. And one of the things that I like to remind people, whether it's during a pandemic or maybe a particularly difficult time in your family or in their lives, is there are lessons that can be learned through this. And as a family of 6, one of the lessons that we learned was that family time is important. Because remember, 4 children from elementary school all the way to high school, there was a time that we were not able to have dinner together because number 1 was in volleyball, number 2 was in softball, number 3 was playing, was on the cheer squad, and number 4 was playing soccer. And if everybody's doing that, they're so pulled out of the family. So one of the things I would say is good that's come out of the pandemic is we've had more family time. And my daughter, who was at youth group the other day, was saying how there's a lot of families that don't eat dinner together. And for us, we're Middle Eastern, and so food around the table is very important. And so we eat dinner together, and we share that family time. And so one of the blessings of the pandemic is that we've been able to stay close as a family. Now, if you're far away from your family, well, Woody, how do you deal with that? Well, I was telling about my mom. My mother is in Montreal, Canada, and she's 92 years old. And how are you going to stay connected? Well, technology is amazing. And so we were talking about bandwidth. So what I had to do for my mom is I had to buy her a device that connects to her internet and allows us to speak. And it's one of those voice-activated screen devices. I'm not going to say which one because I'm not getting paid for it. But it's amazing. Great quality camera. I actually had to send a router up there because her old router didn't have the bandwidth to do 1080p. And so now, all of a sudden, my mom, 92 years old, says, "Hey, so-and-so, call John." And all of a sudden, my phone and our computer rings at the same time. And so we answer my mom, and she's there with us at dinner. So using technology to overcome our isolation, I think, is one of the opportunities we have as well. And so in our churches, we have to live stream. Many of our churches didn't even have a website. And all of a sudden, we have to develop websites and have live stream, etc. And so we could say, oh my gosh, the pandemic, or we say, oh, this has encouraged us to reach out. Now on Sunday, you can watch a multiple of different, usually it used to be only Catholic television. And it was only on if you got CTSA, if you had Spectrum, you could watch it. Now all of a sudden, you could watch, probably 100 different live streams in the San Antonio area, including ours Sunday morning at 10:30. But that's the kind of things that there is a positive side. And we were talking earlier about journaling. You know, journaling is a coping mechanism for anyone at any time that doesn't cost anything. You can even write it in your phone. But to keep a journal about their experiences of the pandemic. What is it like? What was it like to go to a virtual prom? Could you imagine? And so, you know, journaling again is another way that we can glean the wisdom in the midst of this confusing time. You know, there is a message that God is giving us. The problem is we're not listening.
Right.
And so in a journal, you actually slow down because you have to write in sentences. And it allows you to process the messages clearer. It actually allows things to be more quiet so that you can hear God speaking to you through all of the pandemic. And so, you know, I had a professor in seminary that I said, every single person that is serious about their spiritual life must have 15 minutes a day in complete silence. No television, no radio, no interruptions. 15 minutes in contemplative prayer before your icons or before your cross or in your prayer corner. He said, but if at any time 15 minutes is too much, if your situation in life just doesn't allow for 15 minutes and you really can't get that 15 minutes in, then you probably need 30 minutes.
I saw a quote during the pandemic at the beginning, and it had a picture of the hem of Jesus's garment. And this quote kept coming when you were talking today, because it said that when you're only hanging on by a thread, make sure it's the right thread. And it was referring to the woman that her faith saved her, that just by touching the hem of his garment. And so I love this message that you bring to us, that you know, it's important to spend that time with God. Spend time just connecting. There's so much that we can do when we're in the outdoors that we are reminded of God. And even when we're stressed and frustrated that we are in the outdoors, I often, when I go for a run, I like to put on like mashups of Christian music. And it sounds silly, but then most of the time I ended up turning it off. And that's when I have my realest conversations with God, is in the outdoors, because I've unplugged. There's so much beauty about sacred silence, just as Father John was telling us. And that's your challenge, especially right now when things are stressful, when you feel like you're hanging on by just a thread. Try to spend some time disconnecting. Spend that 15 minutes in sacred silence. Get out in the outdoors and see that the joy that is brought into your life through God. Thank you so much, Father John, for joining us today. And we'll be posting more videos like this soon, and keep tuning in to more episodes of VERITAS. Hi, my name is Jessica Lubianski, host of VERITAS, a series that just confronts different truths in our world and truths about our Catholic faith. And what we aim to do is pour truth into young adults and the youth, our young church, and build them up so that they can build the kingdom of God. Each week, we take and we interview different people from around the Archdiocese of San Antonio to do exactly this. For more videos like this, subscribe to Today's Catholic Newspaper on the YouTube channel and hit the notification buttons to be updated every time another awesome truth is revealed.